All right, welcome everybody to another exciting episode of Under the Dome. I'm your host, Allen Ulrich. I had this game on Sunday, and my dad was at a wedding, and he comes in, he looks at the screen like, "Wait a minute, what's this?" And I'm like, "This is from a couple of years ago, Dad. That they actually going to have different uniforms on. I think the 49ers are the home team this year." So I think the 49ers have the scarlet uniforms and the Chiefs have the white ones on this year. I'm not positive on that, but I think
I don't
I
remember
think
either.
they um
Hmm.
but yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I was watching this and I was watching, a lot of the 49ers stuff from this year, watching the Chiefs Super Bowl runs, the 3 years and things. And I'm kind of interested to see, and I'm maybe watching the Super Bowl this year a little bit differently, just to see how the 49ers run their offense
Yep.
and see what kind of, especially in the passing game, what kind of things that Kubiak may be importing to the Saints. What, how would you describe this? Because I have a couple of things I want to say about it, but I want to, excuse me, I want to get from you first. How would you describe this offense? What kind of system is this?
First of all, Klint Kubiak was my top candidate for this position as soon as the as soon as the offseason began. Well, Klint Kubiak and Zach Robinson. So I love what Kubiak brings to the table. Yes, I know that this is Kyle Shanahan's system. And that Klint is just a disciple of it. But Klint's got great football DNA. Son of Gary Kubiak, longtime Denver Bronco backup quarterback,
Yeah.
assistant coach, head coach, Super Bowl winning coach, both head and assistant. Klint was a hot candidate, throughout the league. So this is a big score for New Orleans. As far as the kind of system that he brings, as far as the running game goes, he prefers again. Him and Kyle Shanahan are both disciples of the Gary Kubiak and Mike Shanahan schemes, which is a lot of zone blocking up front, runners one cut and go. They like to get their runners off tackle, and open up cutback lanes to the inside. So that's what to look for in the running game. Fits right up Alvin Kamara's alley, if you ask me. Passing game. What I love about this system, the 49ers system, is that they use motion and formations to create mismatches. They don't just hope for a mismatch coming out of the huddle. Obviously, they have a lot of weapons, premier weapons with Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and obviously George Kittle. But again, they don't just come out of the huddle, saying, okay, we're going to look for the best matchup for us. No, they use motion. They use formation specific game plans to create mismatches, for defenses to deal with those weapons. They use their running backs, as pass catchers, not just McCaffrey, but other backs throughout the history of the Shanahan system. Deebo Samuel, they like to use Deebo out of the backfield in motion, a lot of jet sweeps. Take advantage of Deebo's open field running ability. That's where a lot of people say, oh, they're going to use Taysom Hill or Chris Olave and the Deebo Samuel role. I think I could see him more using Rashid Shaheed in that role, because Shaheed's not as stocky, and strong as Deebo Samuel. But you're not going to find a better open field runner, than Rashid Shaheed. That's why I expect him to be used a lot in that role. And again, they use their tight ends all over the formation, as an H back out of the backfield, as a fullback. And by the way, they do like to use the fullback in the Shanahan Kubiak system as pass catchers, a lot like Sean Payton did early in his Saints tenure. So you're going to get a very multi-dimensional, offense, assuming Klint Kubiak carries a lot of those idealisms over into New Orleans.
How much do you think how he was as Minnesota's offensive coordinator? Do you think he brings that over here? And I know they fired the coach the same year Kubiak was the offensive coordinator, but correct me if I'm wrong, that was also one of Kirk Cousins' best years as a quarterback, and also the year Justin Jefferson really came
Yep.
out. I mean, he was rookie, but I mean, he really exploded as a pass receiver. So, I mean, is that you think that's a good thing to look at?
Yeah, it's a very good thing to look at. And again, not just looking at the 49ers system in the last 2 years, but as you said, the Viking system back in 2021. Now they didn't have nearly the talent, that the San Francisco 49ers do. I think everybody that follows me knows what a low opinion I have of Kirk Cousins. But as you said, Kirk had his most efficient season, of his career to date that year under Klint Kubiak, where they used a lot of. I'm not read option plays, but a lot of quick decisions for the quarterback. Klint doesn't like to have his quarterback sit back in the pass pocket, on a 4 or 5 second count. Likes to deliver the ball on time. A lot of timing routes. And that's something that Justin Jefferson excels at, obviously, because Justin's such a good route runner. And the Kubiak Shanahan system does require the receivers to run a full route tree, which I think plays right up the alley of Chris Olave. So if you're looking to slot Saints players into certain roles, the Chris Olave is going to be slotted in more into that Justin Jefferson role, that we saw with the Vikings. And again, look what a good season Dalvin Cook had, with Minnesota that year. Also a downhill zone blocking running scheme. Very physical attack, but is predicated on balance too. You have to win your battles at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, and that's the thing for me. I think the Saints, and I think especially Dennis Allen, looked at this offense and saw how many things that we just did not do well. We weren't consistent running the football. Our pass concepts were not, for lack of a better term, were haphazard. Kind of throw shit at the wall and see what sticks. Not really. Like Drew Brees was over in New Orleans to open up his little sliders location. I don't know if you're familiar with this. It's these
No,
little
but
mini burgers. It reminds me of Castle Burgers, except without the Taco Bell like effects. But it's little. It's you know what I'm talking about. But
uh-huh.
yeah, the little burgers, little sliders they called, and basically, they interviewed him while he was out there, and they asked him about the offensive coordinator and all those kind of questions. And of course, Kubiak was announced the next day. But he said, "Listen, it was a system not dissimilar to what Peyton was running, but it was just little twists in certain things." Turbo motion, where guys would move a lot faster, and just multiple plays run under the same formation that the Saints used to like to do that they stopped doing once Peyton was gone. So I think that's the kind of things that Allen was looking at the 49ers going, yeah, we need to get back to doing these kind of things. And Pete's not doing those sort of things. Pete's not coming up with these kind of motions. Let's get somebody who's young, and I think Kubiak is only 36, 37 years
Yep.
old. Young, upcoming, aggressive, imaginative, and he comes from a system that is imaginative. It's not that Shanahan is doing anything really bizarre or anything. It's just a twist on a lot of the concepts the Saints have been running. And I think that's what he was really looking at. To me, the biggest thing I want to see is the improvement in the run game and
Yep.
the inside zones that kind of disappeared. You look at the 2018, I've been looking at some of the 2018 Saints plays when Alvin Kamara was really having big years, and those inside runs, not just him running into 9 men in the box, but the inside zone cutbacks that Kamara got so often under Peyton had completely vanished over the past 3 years.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was absolutely
Um,
a business. They just they'd run Kamara right into the teeth of the line, like you said.
mhm.
Alvin's one of the best cutback runners in the business. And he's slowed very very little, if at all. In that capacity. And Pete Carmichael, to your point, he just Alvin Kamara, Rashid Shaheed, Jimmy Graham. He wasn't using the best attributes of his top players.
Exactly, and that's what I think frustrated people more than anything else. They blamed a lot of it on Carr or the quarterbacks, but really the scheme itself just wasn't imaginative enough and getting guys in those matchup situations where you really could take it, exploit a defense because all defenses have a weakness.
Mm-hmm.
And Peyton was a master at that. Anybody who's watched any of the mic'd up games that Peyton was mic'd up for, you could hear him talking to Peyton. Goes, "This is the matchup we were looking for. Look for this player at this point. This is what we want to see. This is what we've been working for." And he would call bad plays on purpose out of those formations to get those matchups that he was looking for. So, bam, he would exploit it, and it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't see that so much in the 49ers system, but I think he will be thinking plays ahead. Like when the defense does this, this is the formation I want to be in. These are the matchups I want. I want Shaheed matched up against their nickel corner. I'm going to set up this play so that he goes into motion. We change everything up, and now Shaheed's matched up against a nickel corner. He can go run a skinny post, or he can run, you know, start on it like he's going to do a comeback like this one right here. That's just simple. It's a simple arrow route. But
Yep.
running one of those things like he's going to go deep, pulls up, comes back in, and he's wide open because the corner is backpedaling the whole time because he's like, he's going to take off on me. This is going to be a go route. So, yeah, I just, it's things I'm really excited about watching out of this. And I really want to see the running game come alive because to me, that's the key to this team getting to be better is
Yeah.
they have to run the football better. With that said, we this is true. Yes, that
Mm-hmm.
is true. They did run with Dalvin Cook. They ran
Mm-hmm.
tremendous screens. And that is something that's been missing from this offense as well. And to me, I think Kamara runs screens well, but I really like what I saw when they ran it a couple times. The screens that Condre Miller was running.
Yeah.
He really got from standing still to top speed in like 2 or 3 steps, and that was tremendous. Um, but that being said, the Saints also released the offensive line coach, Doug Marrone, which was another good step forward. You and
Mm-hmm.
I have been talking about him for a while as one of the other guys that needed to go because of mainly the failure to develop Penning. You invested a lot of draft capital in Trevor Penning. He was not inactive, but he never saw the field from the time they benched him. Not even the jumbo packages. Somebody would get hurt. He isn't in there to replace him. They have people like Landon Young coming in. They have Cameron Irving coming in, well above Penning.
Yeah, and I think
First of
that
all, I
was
know you weren't surprised by the move, but
not at all. The only thing that surprised me about the move is that
no, go
why the
ahead.
hell did it take so long? Yeah, why the hell did it take so long to release Doug Marrone was my only surprise. And you're right. The major indictment against Marrone was the failure to develop Penning. This is not only a first round pick, but a first round pick you gave up draft choices to go get. And once you made the decision to bench him, which was the right move, Penning played 13 snaps total over the last 10 games. And you pointed out, guys like Landon Young, and Cam Irving getting signed off the street were playing ahead of them. And even when those guys would get hurt, they'd move James Hurst outside and bring Max Garcia, in to play Hurst's guard spot. That's how low, that Trevor Penning, sunk on the depth chart. And not only that, the problems that the Saints had at guard all year long. Another regression out of Cesar Ruiz. Indictment against the coaches. You drafted Nick Saldiveri. Sorry, Jerry. I know I got an echo going on. You drafted Nick Saldiveri, and granted, that's a day 3 pick. But still, a lot of us expected him to get a little bit of action. And even with all the issues that the Saints had at guard, either injury or ineffective play, Saldiveri never saw the field. That's an indictment on the coach. Don't get me wrong; it's an indictment on the players too. They have to do their job. They're the ones that have to improve. But at the end of the day, the coach is always going to get the axe well before the first round draft choice, and I think that's basically what it came down to.
Yeah, and I think the only reason why they waited so long to fire Marrone was because they wanted to get that offensive coordinator in place first. Because basically, we're missing now a running backs coach. Joel Thomas went to the Giants on his own volition, but I think he was going to get fired anyway. Cody Burns, we don't have a wide receiver coach. We don't have an offensive assistant because they let Bob Becknell go. Now you don't have an offensive line coach. These are all positions now that Kubiak is going to have say over who he brings in. So what kind of names are you hearing as possible replacements for Marrone? I'm not so much worried about the running back and receivers coach because I think those positions will kind of come along. But the offensive line coach, I think, is huge right now because their job is to fix Penning.
Yeah, it is. And the first name that we're hearing is John Benton. Most recently the offensive line coach for the New York Jets. But Benton was also with the 49ers organization from 2017 to 2020. Benton also was Gary Kubiak's offensive line coach way back when with the Houston Texans. So there's ties there. Benton would be a good hire. Other names to watch: Rick Dennison. Who was out of football last year, but Dennison has long ties, going back with Gary Kubiak, even as when they were both players with the Denver Broncos. Dennison was, Kubiak's either offensive coordinator or offensive line coach at 3 different stops, and he worked with Klint Kubiak in Minnesota as well. So Rick Dennison would bring loads of experience to this staff. 2 other names from the 49ers, both assistant offensive line guys. James Craig, who was also an LSU assistant, on that national championship team with Joe Burrow, and Joe Graves, another assistant line coach for the 49ers, who has also coached at Southeast Louisiana and Louisiana Monroe. He was a college player for one of those 2 schools too. I just don't remember which one. Those are some of the names to watch for offensive line. If you're looking for guys that have had ties to either Klint Kubiak or his dad Gary, they make the most sense to me, and any one of them I think would be an upgrade over Marrone.
It's funny. I read that Benton was a former Saint from
the scat player.
Team. Yeah, well, and that's what they didn't say that part until I started looking into it. I'm going, man, I take pride in knowing who some of these obscure Saints players are, and I'll be damned if I know who the hell this guy was. And sure enough, yeah, he was a member of the replacement players back in 1987, and I couldn't tell you. I don't even remember who the running backs were on those teams. I don't remember anything about those teams. And it's just so funny because once they said, replacement play, I'm like, okay, all right, that makes sense because I didn't know who any of those guys were. And only 2 guys from the replacement Saints actually made it onto the roster, John Forte being one, and Tommy Barnhart, the punter, was actually a replacement punter. And he stayed on the team in 87. He didn't play. But in I I think 89 is when he became a starter. Hunter was back
Mhm.
then. I don't. It wasn't Brian Hansen. Brian Hansen was gone. No, Brian Hansen was gone by 88. So I don't remember who the punter was in 88. Um, because Take It to the Top was back in 85. That god awful song. Those of you who may not know what that is, Morton Anderson and Brian Hansen did this song, Take It to the Top, and it came out, I want to say it came out in 85, and is the quintessential 80s song. I mean, electric drums, all keyboards, and I they're singing, but it sounds like an echo chamber the whole time. I couldn't tell you one voice from the other. And the most amusing part of this whole thing is the cover of this album. They both have these white short shorts on that are kind
Yeah.
of rolled up, and they both got the little bit of a mullet going with the side shades real tight, and they got these. It's a quintessential '80s look. I mean, I'm from the '80s, and I didn't dress this
Mhm.
way, but they did. So anyway, that's just what I remember. And when Tommy Barnhart took over in '89, because the punter was not very good, if I remember correctly. Um, but anyway, I to me that's the offensive line coach is the second most important decision that Allen's going to have to make
Mhm.
on to revamp this offense, because fixing Penning and how this offensive line is going to play now. What are they going to be expecting out of them? Because they do run a zone blocking scheme, but the Peyton system traditionally has Ruiz, the right guard. Before that, it was oh hell, I forgot his name now. 67. Um, the
Warford.
guy that Warford, Larry Warford. If you watch it a lot, he pulls and then switches over to left tackle uh,
Mhm.
as they drop back to pass. That was a classic Peyton system. I don't know if they're going to be doing those kind of things anymore. Now you're talking about much more cutback, kind of more the Gary Gibbs, no, Alex Gibbs, sorry, Alex Gibbs style of zone
Mhm.
blocking, which is borderline illegal. Do you remember that
Yeah.
controversy? How that was borderline illegal?
Yeah,
Because they
yeah,
were.
a lot of crackback concepts.
Yeah.
Basically linemen, tight
Mhm.
ends, and even wide receivers doubling back on the linebackers and even defensive linemen.
Yeah. And the defensive linemen and defensive players hate it because,
Hmm.
like they said, it was borderline illegal. Felt like they were going to get cut at the knees or get cut illegally in the back and all these other kind of things. And they would train so they would just catch your shoulder just
Yep.
right. So it would ride you out to play. Um, so do you think, and this is where I was going with this question, how much change is going to happen in the roster now to accommodate this new scheme?
I don't know that we'll see a lot of huge roster change over immediately. Because of the Saints salary cap issues. And that doesn't
Mhm.
mean I'm not sitting here saying that they're going to have to cut a lot of players. You guys should know better. Mickey Loomis is still here. Kai Harley is still here. They're going to figure out a way to reshuffle these contracts just like they always do. But what that also means is they aren't going to be able to get in a lot of they're not going to be able to make any free agent splashes. We already knew coming into the offseason that the offensive line is a major area of need, and I expect that to be addressed in the draft, early in the draft. Either interior tackle or both. But if you're looking for a couple free agents, that are familiar with the Kubiak system, Dalton Risner, familiar with Klint Kubiak, with the Broncos, and I think he played with the Vikings last year. Cameron Fleming, John Feliciano, those are other than Risner, those are linemen that aren't necessarily going to tilt the Richter scale as far as fan excitement. but you want to get in guys that know this system, that are familiar with it and can help teach their teammates along with the coaches. So you're. It wouldn't surprise me. New Orleans has. Hold on. Andrus Peat, Trey Turner, Cameron Irving, and James Hurst are all unrestricted free agents. It wouldn't surprise me if the Saints didn't even attempt to re-sign any of them outside of maybe Pete, because of his starting experience. The New Orleans just went strictly replacements. For those guys on the free agent market, a couple of the names that I mentioned. And then go for a lineman with a first or second round pick. You're not going to see a lot of changeover at the skill positions. Don't be surprised if the Saints focus on bringing another big-bodied blocking type of wide out. KJ Osborne played under Kubiak's system in Minnesota. I know a lot of people are automatically saying, "Oh, Juwan Jennings in San Francisco." Yeah, that'd be a good one, but Jennings is a restricted free agent. KJ Osborne is unrestricted. Don't look. If the Saints draft anybody at wide receiver, probably going to be later in the draft, and it's going to be those big body types that they're going to be able to use. Shut up, John Butler. They're going to be, it's going to be a guy that will be able to help out in the running game as well. They already have their smaller, shifty guys in Olave, and Rashid Shaheed. So maybe an A.T. Perry, gets trained on how they used, Juwan Jennings or even Brandon Ayuk in some situations. So, and I don't expect a lot of roster changeover at running back either. Alvin Kamara is going to be used similarly to the way they use Christian McCaffrey. And in my opinion, Kamara has always been the better all-around back. Jamal Williams still under contract, reasonable cap number. And Kondre Miller not only still under contract but under a rookie deal. So I don't expect a lot of changeover at the skill positions. Maybe a tight end. Maybe the Saints actually will draft a tight end. For a change. Someone that fits their system, a guy that's going to be able to be an inline blocker, but also a legitimate receiving threat. Maybe Foster Moreau fills that bill too. We expected Foster to play that kind of role last year, and Pete Carmichael really didn't use him in that way, but I think he can be effective in Kubiak's system. So you're going to see some different names on the offensive line, not so much the skill positions.
Well, it's funny you mentioned all the positions and stuff, and I'm thinking about this too at the draft, how much it'll change in the draft. We've all pretty much said that pass rusher, defensive end, offensive line, whether you go get a tackle or you go get a guard, you have to get one of them in the draft. I don't want to put my eggs in the Penning basket. I want Penning to surprise me. Okay.
Yeah.
Penning could be. They could try and back left tackle again with a new coach, or they could move him to guard and you're drafting a tackle, one of those two things. But you also mentioned tight end. There's been somewhat of a debate on this. In this particular game, we've got two of the best tight ends in the league. You've got Travis Kelce and you have George Kittle. Neither one were first-round picks.
Right.
Meanwhile, the Atlanta Falcons drafted Kyle Pitts in the first round, and he is not one of the elite tight ends in the league. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have drafted tight ends in the first round a couple of times, O.J. Howard, Irv Smith, and not have those guys pan out the way they should. I'm sorry, Irv Smith, I think, was the Vikings, but regardless, guys they took in the first round. The tight end for the Detroit Lions was not a first round pick. Do you take, say, a Brock Bowers in the first round because of the need to have a diverse tight end, a mismatch, both as a blocker and also in the passing game?
Boy, I tell you, if Brock Bowers is available at 14, it'd be really, really tough to pass him up. Because Brock is not just a bulked up wide receiver, as you mentioned. He's a diverse tight end. He's a guy that can not only contribute as an inline blocker, but actually get into his routes and be a legitimate pass catching threat as an inline tight end. And I love Juwan Johnson. I really do. And I think he's going to have a place in the Klint Kubiak offense. But Jawan's best attributes as a receiver are in space when you line him up out wide, when you bring him out of the slot, or when you use him in motion. They need a guy who could be a legitimate pass catcher off the line. And again, maybe that guy is Foster Moreau, but I think it's safe to say that Brock Bowers would be a significant upgrade, athletic upgrade over a Foster Moreau if he is available. Again, with the need so major at offensive line and at pass rusher, even if Brock Bowers were available at 14, if some of those other guys, other linemen, defensive or offensive, are there, I still think I might pass on Brock and check off the needs there, and we'll have plenty of time to talk about the specific needs. Because there's a couple other tight ends. I love Theo Johnson from Penn State, Jaheim Bell from Florida State. Are two guys that I am absolutely in love with at the tight end position. That will be available perhaps as late into day 2 or early day 3. That I still think I do believe the tight end is a legitimate need for this team, but it's a specific type of tight end, as you said. It's got to be a guy that can not only contribute as a blocker in line, but be a legitimate pass catcher coming out of all that traffic and mess coming off the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the Chiefs this year, and the Chiefs really are a collection of nobodies at wide receiver with Travis Kelce. And when it's money time, whenever Pat Mahomes needs a play in the passing game, he's going to Kelce, and Kelce comes up for him. George Kittle in this offense of the 49ers run, a huge asset because he gets in the middle of the field. He moves the chains for you on third down. He is your in the middle of the field guy you're going to go to. He's a mismatch for most linebackers. So a guy like Brock Bowers, really excites me, but I'm also looking at Cameron Jordan, 35 years old, and all the other issues that we've talked about. Where does are you going to trust this collection of Andres Pete, James Hurst, assuming he comes back, and Trevor Penning as your left tackles, and the loser ends up at guard? I mean, are you really going to do that and maybe take a offensive lineman later on in the draft? Because you only have 2 day 1 and day 2 picks.
Yep.
So it's really tough. So I'm torn on that, because at the same time, then I feel good about my receiving core because I could roll with A.T. Perry, Shaheed, and Olave, and Olave being, basically your X receiver, because I've got a tight end that can do everything that Michael Thomas used to be able to do for me, because I'm assuming Michael Thomas is not coming back. I can get a guy. We talked about that last week. I can get a guy like a Hunter Renfrow fairly inexpensively as my wide receiver number 4, occasionally coming in as a 3, and basically being almost like what we saw with Foster Moreau. Somebody comes in with special packages, special alignments, and you still have Taysom Hill out there. Where, I think a lot of the Deebo Samuel packages become Taysom Hill packages, because I'm sure that part of the discussion with Kubiak was, how would you use Taysom Hill? What would you do with Taysom Hill? And I'm sure his eyes lit up like, there's a lot of shit I want to do with this dude, because this guy can run, can run over people. He's a physical guy. So, I mean, there's a lot of opportunities, but where do they go with this? I don't know yet. We won't know until free agency starts and they start making their moves.
Yeah.
Which leads me to my next topic. Um, Restructuring contracts, and we've already heard Derek Carr is probably the first one on deck. Some fans are really upset about this because they want Carr gone. You know, they
Yeah.
want Dennis Allen gone too, but they want Carr gone.
Yeah.
To me, Carr's not going anywhere. Carr's not
Mhm.
going anywhere for a couple years.
Mhm.
Even if they were to draft a quarterback at 14 or move up in the draft to take somebody at 10 if they slid to 10, it's a guy they love, say Penix, okay, from Washington, because he's the one name I hear that of the top three quarterbacks, his the name I keep hearing that's sliding down. If they take a quarterback, they still have to restructure a deal for Carr because he's got it's his contract is huge. You're going to pay him. You've already committed. You guaranteed him money. It's a question of how that money is going to be allocated towards the cap. He's going to
Yeah.
get his money. So it's an accounting number. It's not, oh, we're going to screw this dude over. We're not going to pay him any money. You know, it's too late. We've already made that commitment.
Yep.
He's guaranteed this money. Now it's a question of, well, how do I allocate it towards the cap? And it's an accounting gimmick that we do where we just prorate it longer. I mean, how do you feel about this? Do you think, well, first off, I think you and I are in agreement, but I want to get your opinion on this. Restructuring Carr, and how long do you think Carr is going to be here?
Um, the original contract was, that Derek signed was for 4 years, with the bulk of the money over the first 2 years. They did that specifically for potential restructuring purposes, so that way they could move some of the money if they had to, which is the situation we're looking at now. Some of the money if they had to into the the back 2 years of the contract. So I think by restructuring Carr, and I believe that I agree with you. I think that they almost have to, just for cap purposes. By restructuring Carr, you are now locked into him for an additional 2 years. And people that are saying or wanting the Saints to draft a quarterback, I've been saying it all along. That decision was clinched as soon as they made the decision that Dennis Allen was coming back. That made it 95% sure that Derek Carr was going to be your quarterback. Well, by restructuring Carr and locking yourself financially to him for the next 2 years, that percentage now goes to 99.99999% that the Saints will not draft a quarterback in the first round. And that is even exaggerated more, because one of the things that they undoubtedly talked to Klint Kubiak about was, can you work with Derek Carr as your quarterback? Tell us how you're going to work with Derek Carr as your quarterback, because like it or not, if you sign on with us, Derek Carr is your quarterback. So Derek Carr is the Saints quarterback in 2024 and almost certainly in 2025. That's a guarantee. So it's just as much of a guarantee because there's a lot of jobs on the line now. We're not going to hear it, but the fact is that Klint Kubiak in this offense absolutely has to work for Dennis Allen and the rest of the staff to keep their jobs. So the only way Derek Carr is not your quarterback is if this whole thing blows up and the new coaching staff comes in and decides, with support from management, we're going to tear this thing down. We're going to take our salary cap bite in the ass, give your fans your first round quarterback, but we're going to have no weapons. We're going to have a Carolina Panthers Bryce Young situation for at least 1 year. That's the only way that Derek Carr is not your quarterback beyond 2024. Period. End of story.
Yeah, I agree with this, because if you look at it from the Saints' point of view, it's not that they don't want to draft a quarterback. I expect them to want to draft a quarterback. I know they're looking at quarterbacks. They look at quarterbacks every year.
Yeah.
But it's also, what do we have? What assets do we have right now? And to me, the big pressure on getting a quarterback this year is mainly coming from LSU fans or people who want Carr gone, but mainly LSU fans who want the guy, Jane Daniels from LSU.
Yeah,
They
yeah, they
look
don't
at
want
it
a
as
quarterback. They don't want a quarterback. They want Jaden Daniels.
right,
And I say it again for
right.
you, LSU, for you people who bleed purple and yellow. If Bo Nix was the LSU quarterback last year, you'd be saying the same exact thing about Bo Nix. Same exact thing about Michael Penix. Same exact thing about a couple of these other quarterbacks. It's just, like Alan said, you don't want a quarterback. You want the quarterback from LSU. Neither is going to happen. Neither. Period.
No, no, he's not even getting out of the top five. First off,
No.
I think he's pretty much locked into Washington. I think Washington's going to be the one that drafts him. Um, Washington's got its own problems right now, and we'll talk a little bit about
Yeah.
that in a few minutes. But um, exactly, if the Saints were to draft Bo Nix, people would not be happy. If the Saints, and I don't want Bo Nix, by the way, I have the same feelings about Bo Nix as the guy who left Auburn to go stat pad over in the Pac-12. I prefer Penix over him. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, I think there will be a quarterback they look at. The Tulane kid made me somebody to look at. That's somebody who's going to be probably in the middle rounds.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, people are going to be like, yeah, fourth round, third round pick. Well, they don't have a third round pick as of now. But third round, fourth round pick, I mean, that's really not a starter and stuff like that. Well, look at this. This is not the game, obviously, but look at this team. Brock Purdy is the starting quarterback. That's Mr. Irrelevant. He was literally the last
Mm-hmm.
person drafted.
Yep.
The guy who's playing in this game right now, Jimmy Garoppolo, it was a backup to Tom Brady. The other quarterback that he worked with, Kubiak worked with, Kirk Cousins, he was a backup that got a starting job in Washington and became a much more efficient quarterback. So you're looking at a guy. I know, Anna. I don't want Bo Nix either. Nobody wants Bo Nix, but and we do have bigger needs than quarterback right now. But my point with this is, you've got a system in place here that less than top 5, top 10 first round pick quarterbacks have been extremely successful in. This is the kind of system where you see if you can make something out of Carr or
Yep.
make him a better quarterback. And he showed over those last 5 games, he did show improvement, getting the ball out quicker, being more decisive with his throws. And a lot of it is because he got healthier. But he did get better. And I think with a better system, playing more to his strengths, and having a running game, a much more efficient running game, you're not going to need to get that quarterback this year. There'll be a time to get that quarterback. It's just not this year.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I look at it. And Anna's right. We do have needs bigger than quarterback, pass rusher and offensive line by
Yeah.
far.
Yeah.
You've got to
Yeah.
address that.
No doubt. If you have any inkling that you're going to be a contender, whether it's for a wild card spot, division title, or God forbid, maybe even a Super Bowl, and a contender on any level, then you have to address those needs at offensive line, at defensive line, linebacker, safety, tight end. I put all those needs before quarterback. Is Derek Carr a top tier quarterback? Absolutely not. But he's a guy you can win with. I look at it this way, and again, I'm looking at that game behind you. If you can win with Jimmy Garoppolo, then you can win with Derek Carr.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, Garoppolo got the 49ers. He had this unbelievable record as a starter compared to all the other backups. But he got the 49ers to the Super Bowl. He got the 49ers to a couple of NFC championships. Brock Purdy has gotten the 49ers to 2 NFC championship games. as a starter. Um, it's a system that can make a quarterback successful. There's a guy I'd love to get. If we
Yeah.
could get a guy from the 49ers, number 44, the fullback. Um, it's just one of these kinds of systems where I think that you can get somebody who is efficient but not a playmaker, because you don't really need a playmaker at that position at this moment. A
Hmm.
playmaker makes that offense more dangerous,
Hmm.
but if we had multiple first round picks, or if it was 2017 and we had 6 picks in the top 100, I would be like, absolutely, go get a quarterback. Get a quarterback and get your lineman at the end of the draft, end of the first round. Get your pass rush, your offensive tackle in the second round. Go get those guys. We get a quarterback first. Um, yeah. The thing though with Lattimore, does Lattimore give you a first round pick this year? And we've talked about this before, but Bob, how do you feel about that? Do you think Lattimore can give you a first round pick this year?
No, no, I don't. He's a first round talent, no
Mm-hmm.
doubt. But just real quick. In the last few years, we have seen Jalen Ramsey, Stephon Gilmore, Darius Slay, Marcus Peters all traded. And when I say the last few, I mean all within the last 5 years. Hell,
Mm-hmm.
Ramsey, Gilmore, and Peters have been traded twice. Uh,
Yeah.
in 2019, when Ramsey was traded from the Jaguars to the Rams, the Rams gave up 2 firsts and a fourth round pick for him. You're not going to get that for Lattimore. The more accurate thing in 2023, when Ramsey was traded from the Rams to the Dolphins, that was for a third round pick and tight end Hunter Long. The truth is that if you're able to deal Lattimore, you're probably going to get something in between that. When Darius Slay was traded from Detroit to Philadelphia, that brought back a third round pick and a fifth round pick. Peters going from Kansas City to the Rams in 2018, a second and a fourth. That's the kind of deal that you're looking at for Lattimore. At best, I am thinking a late first or a second round pick. At best, I'm not saying Lattimore isn't worth it. An elite shutdown cornerback certainly is, as we saw with Jalen Ramsey earlier in his career. But you're also talking about a guy, Lattimore, with a high cap number, and a guy that's missed 17 of the last 34 games because of injuries. Is he the kind of guy that you build your defense around, your secondary around? Yeah, he is, if he stays healthy. But if I'm the team trading for Lattimore, I'm taking a big gamble too. Not only in the assets that I'm trading to you, but in the cap number that I'm paying for him in return. And can he stay healthy? So no, I don't. Is Lattimore as talented as a first round pick? 100%. Will he net a first round pick in a trade if indeed the Saints trade him? Nope. I'd be willing to bet strongly against it.
Yeah, your best bet is you could con a team like the Detroit Lions into giving up their first round pick for Lattimore.
Yeah,
But
because
you
that's a
probably,
big need with them.
yeah, and you probably have to give up something in return for them to eat his contract, take his contract on, so you're not getting killed in the cap. So you might be giving them a first round, they're giving you their first round, and you're probably burning a future asset like a second round pick next year, something to that effect. If you're lucky, if you get a deal that's very favorable to you, um, because yeah, the Lions would be somebody we're looking for that, and then that means you're picking at the bottom half of the first round, around what 28, 29, I think they end up at, because of how the playoffs fell. I don't remember if they had a better record than Baltimore, but yeah, you're looking at 28 or 29 or 30 maybe, because this is 31 and 32 right here.
Yeah.
So anyway, that doesn't mean you can't get a good player.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, you can get a good player. But to go back to what Calvin was saying, that would be your shot at getting a quarterback maybe in the first round, because you can use your first round pick on a guy and use the bottom half of the draft, maybe get a defensive lineman that you're looking for, whatever. And then you created a hole now in your secondary, which possibly could be filled with a battle between Yidam and Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
But, you lose an impact player because neither of those guys are at Lattimore's elite level. Taylor's got a lot of growth, a lot of potential, but he was playing the slot all last year. So that's a tough decision to make when you're thinking about what am I going to do to maneuver these things. So in the meantime, you kind of have to try and fill as many of your needs as possible in free agency. And that's why I brought up the Derek Carr thing, because I think Derek Carr, first off, he gives you your best chance of getting some money back. So you have the opportunity to go get somebody in free agency. Obviously, you're not going to get an elite pass rusher in free agency because they just don't come loose.
Right.
Chris Jones for the Chiefs here is a free agent. There's no way on God's green earth the Chiefs are letting him go. Then they're going to franchise him. They franchise all those great players. So you mentioned some of the possibilities at guard, ex-Vikings, ex-Broncos, ex-49ers players. If I'm looking for a splash player, where am I looking for a splash player? Is it wide receiver maybe? In free agency?
You're talking in free agency?
In free agency.
You're talking in free agency? Yeah, it's probably in maybe a tight end. It could be a tight end because we saw the last 2 years now, several very, very talented tight ends hit the open market. And a lot of them were signed to 1-year deals. 1-year deals worth between $5 and $7 million a year. That's very, very affordable. So I think that you can bring in a very talented contributor at tight end, for a reasonable sum. I don't have. A couple of the names that should be hitting the free agent market at that position: Dalton Schultz from the Texans, Gerald Everett, Irv Smith, going to be a free agent again if he can stay healthy. Austin Hooper, Hunter Henry, Mike Gesicki, Noah Fant. I think all of those guys, would be an upgrade, to what we saw Foster Moreau being able to contribute. And again, I think Foster Moreau and Juwan Johnson both have roles in this Kubiak offense, but to bring in a guy like Schultz, Everett, I'm a big Gerald Everett fan, always have been. To bring in a guy, a tight end is not going to break your salary cap back. You mentioned edge rusher, and the elite edge rushers. They just don't hit. They don't hit free agency, not in their prime. You're going to have a guy like Daniil Hunter, maybe on the open market, but he's going to command $18-20 million average a year. That's going to be out of the Saints cap range. And what are you going to do? Are you going to bring Ngakoue in? Are you going to bring a Marcus Davenport back? Charles Harris, Derek Barnett, well past his prime. So I don't see you making a splash at edge rusher. You could make a splash at safety. That's another position that talented players hit the market year after year, and we don't see teams paying a high salary for them. Jordan Whitehead, going to be a free agent from the Jets. I'd love to see Jordan Whitehead in New Orleans. It's a pipe dream, but Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is going to be a free agent again. Micah Hyde from the Bills, Micah Hyde is probably going to be a little bit out of your price range, maybe. But Jaron Kearse, Darnell Savage, Taylor Rapp, some of the other guys that are Kyle Duggar, Xavier McKinney. These are going to be some of the free agent safeties that will be available. And I know they have Tyrann Mathieu, and you guys, a lot of you love Tyrann Mathieu. He's well past his prime. He could still be a contributor for this defense, but you need an upgrade, an athletic, a youthful athletic upgrade at safety. I would expect them to probably move on from Marcus May. Jordan Howden played well, but you need an impact player here. Tyrann Mathieu is not that anymore, and we don't know if Jordan Howden is that yet. So I think looking for a splash is probably going to come, my opinion, either it's safety or tight end, where there's a lot of players, good young players that aren't going to break your salary cap back.
What about linebacker? Do you see them because you have an aging Demario Davis, although Demario Davis can fight off all the time. If somebody can beat all the time, I think Demario Davis is the guy who could. But Demario Davis, and you have a Pete Werner who he had a down year in the beginning. He was coming along, but kind of had a down year last year. I don't expect Zach Bond to be back. But if you're looking for a linebacker, is there anybody in free agency that should be coming loose that possibly could be somebody that the Saints would look at as maybe not a big splash player, but somebody that they would look at as, okay, this is a guy that we would feel comfortable with as a starter if we were to go to three linebackers?
Yeah, absolutely. And remember that's how they stumbled upon Demario Davis, who I loved the signing at the time back in 2018. But a lot of the average fans, they were like, they're signing a linebacker from the Jets. This is an awful signing, and boo, hiss, etc. Well, Demario Davis turned out to be a pretty damn good player. Second best free agent signing in team history behind Drew Brees. So yeah, there's a couple guys like this. Josie Jewell from the Broncos. How sweet would it be to get the Broncos team captain, after Sean Payton pulling all those former Saints over. Jordan Hicks from the Vikings was on the Vikings with Klint, Kubiak, and those guys. Can't see Levante David from the Buccaneers, although that would be a sweet pickup. But Willie Gay from the Chiefs, Willie Gay is only 26 years old, and he is in the prime of his career right now. Anthony Walker Jr. from the Browns, one of the top league's top defenses. Walker is a 120 plus tackle a year guy who's dealt with some injuries in recent years. So yeah, I think a linebacker. Both Alan and I mentioned linebacker being a need for this team beyond Demario Davis heading into this offseason. All of those guys I just mentioned are on the good side, or on the 20 side of 30, and I think would be great additions to the Saints defense.
Well, Gay is somebody I really had my eye on because they specifically said he was a spy linebacker to deal with when they were playing the Ravens, to deal with Lamar Jackson. What is the one problem this team has had over the past few years is dealing with mobile quarterbacks. If you have a linebacker who can act as a spy and can take on mobile quarterbacks, sign me up immediately. Yeah. Because that's probably the biggest weakness this defense has had under Dennis Allen, is the inability to deal with mobile quarterbacks. And I would love to get that kind of a linebacker. So yeah, to me, defensive side is probably where you're going to see the money spent. I agree with you. Safety, linebacker, tight end is a good possibility because, you do need – Juwan Johnson's got his place, but you really need a difference maker at tight end, and they have some of those guys that are going to be out there. And Schultz is probably at the top of my list. That's going to be a lot of money probably to get him. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Texans franchise him to try and keep him, because they want to keep as many weapons as possible for a young quarterback. But waiting for this thing to catch up. And we're back. But, I expect them to tag Schultz because you want to keep as many weapons as possible for a young um, quarterback like C.J. Stroud. Um,
Hmm.
you could probably get some good linebackers in the fifth round.
Oh
There's a
yeah,
lot of
yeah.
guys that are out there. So if you don't get one, I'm not upset, but I think you need a veteran linebacker out there, just for the leadership vacuum. So one of the big talking points this past few weeks since they let Pete Carmichael go was that the Saints can't attract anybody good. The Saints aren't going to be able to pull any good coaches because they're a toxic environment. Who's going to want to work for Dennis Allen, who's on a hot seat, and ruin their reputation? All these things, and yet we get Klint Kubiak. Meanwhile, you've got the Washington Commanders, you've got or Redskins, which I still think that's their name,
Yep.
and the Las Vegas Raiders. I went through all three names that time. The Las Vegas Raiders, who both of them at one point had Cliff Kingsbury as their offensive coordinator. He agreed initially with the Raiders, then switched over and decided to go to Washington. Meanwhile, Washington is pissed off. They've got their second choice in Dan Quinn as a head coach because Ben Johnson on the flight there said, you know what? I really don't want to come work for you guys. And they're out there with acolytes in the media trying to destroy Ben Johnson's reputation.
Yeah.
Um, that's dysfunctional.
Hmm.
I mean, how do you look at these situations? Because the Raiders now have to scramble to go find an offensive coordinator. Um, how do you, if you're Dan Quinn and you're reading this stuff, that what, you're a fallback option, you're a just in case date. Oh, by the way, here's the team. I want you to build a good team for me.
Right.
How do you take all this stuff in? How do you that's a toxic environment.
Yeah, it is.
That's an organization in chaos.
Yeah, it really is, and like Dan Quinn doesn't have enough of a mess to clean up on the field. With a Washington team that really is devoid of talent in so many areas. If you're Dan, you got to try to block out the noise the best you can. And just say, well, whether I'm the second, first, third, ninth choice, it doesn't matter because I'm here now. Dan Quinn's a good coach. And I think if he's allowed to do his job in Washington, he'll have them competing within a couple of years, probably. If ownership is patient with him and they don't meddle. But I'll tell you, it's tough because like you said, we're all human, and nobody likes to hear that you weren't the first choice, especially when you hear it so publicly. And in so many forums, it's a blow to the ego for sure. But I still believe that at the end of the day, Washington might be a tiny bit less dysfunctional, than the Oakland, Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah. The Raiders are a total mess. And one of the best comments I saw on social media was that Cliff finally got a good look at that haircut that Mark Davis has and said, you know what? I'm out of here. If you look like the guy from Dumb and Dumber, Jim Carrey's character from Dumb and Dumber, I can't work for you.
Yeah.
You look like one of those kids that's promised McDonald's if you promise not to shit yourself during the day. Yeah, we won't have Mark Davis as a guest on this show anytime soon. But yeah, because I'm sorry. It's just that is a completely screwed up organization, and it goes back to Al Davis's days. Sean Payton wrote about it in his book. They meet for 4 hours interviewing, and when they were supposed to take him out for dinner, Al Davis goes and orders cheeseburgers to get delivered. For
Mm-hmm.
the In-N-Out something ridiculous like that. And when he went back to Dallas, Bill Parcells says, "Now you know what a bad organization looks like." And that's the reality of the Raiders. They're a
Yeah.
bad organization. Washington has been a bad organization for decades
Yeah.
since Dan Snyder took over. It's a lot to correct, and contrary to what some Saints fans believe, the Saints have a good reputation in the league.
Hmm.
They are highly regarded as a good organization. Um, we started this show talking about Kubiak changing the offense. Well, in reality, the Saints have basically run the same kind of offense going back to 2000, Mike McCarthy taking over.
Hmm.
So that's 23 years. It's evolved, it's changed. Sean Payton has his own twist and a lot of Air Coryell concepts. But basically, it's been a version of the West Coast offense for 23 years, which
Yep.
is an amazing statistic. Um, in one of Sean Butler, in one of the things that I've also watched a lot of America's games, and I watched the Missing Rings, the 1981 Chargers,
Hmm.
which I really, really enjoy. All of them
Me
are
too.
good. All the
Yeah.
Missing Rings are good. But that one and the Vikings one are really good insights to those teams, because in the Vikings one, there's Bud Grant talking about, you know, he doesn't care about not winning the Super Bowl. Those games, they're over with. They're done. I don't have to worry about that. I had good players and I had a lot of success as head coach of the Vikings. Um, for Dan Fouts, he talked about why they never seemed to get over the hump. He said because ownership changed. When ownership changed, coaches change, philosophies change. You start bringing in different guys. Players get older. Quarterback starts getting hurt. All those things are why they didn't get any. Why they never could get back to that title game they were at in '81.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, if you have a system in place for 23 years and basically you have had a coach for 16 of those 23 years who got you so many playoff games, the rest of the league looks at you like you're a model of stability. You're what we
Yeah.
want to see. Um, it wasn't always successful, but you were there. We were aware of you. We know that you take care of your players, that you do good
Hmm.
things, and that helps you bring in good talent and
Yeah.
coaches. That helps you bring in good players, all those sort of things. Yeah, Jimmy Gumbo, Carolina, throw them in the mix too. That ownership, new ownership, and it's already chaos. He fired his coach after 1 year, had no patience. We find out they traded up for a guy, and it's not the guy they wanted anyway.
Hmm.
What kind of success is he going to have now if he knows that ownership looks at him like you drafted the wrong effing guy? That's the kind of stuff that impacts a franchise over the long haul, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that is the kind of culture that, Sean Payton is trying to put back into Denver. It's the advantage a team like the Chiefs have and the 49ers have, and that's why they've been so successful. Baltimore is another one.
Yeah.
Detroit is trying to develop that culture. I have my issues with Dennis Allen. I don't think he's a great coach. I don't think he's an awful coach. I think he's a mediocre coach who needs to have great players and great assistants, especially on offense,
Hmm.
to get him to be a better coach, and to get him to be successful. I saw some growth from him last year and willingness to go for it more on fourth down and things like that, and acknowledging his weaknesses by firing all these offensive coaches and going to get a guy like Kubiak. I don't know if it's enough to save his job. I don't know what's going to happen with that. But to me, it's better than Mike Ditka or even Jim Moore, who was stubborn and stuck with Carl Smith, even though that offense was not progressing. That's why you weren't winning playoff games when you had an elite defense. I mean, do you feel similar to that?
Yeah. Listen, I don't like Dennis Allen as a coach, pure and simple. But I don't think that I don't. He's certainly not the worst. He's not even the worst coach in New Orleans Saints history. For those of you old enough to remember, any of you old enough to remember Ditka knows that Dennis Allen is not the worst coach in Saints history. I think I agree with everything that you just said. Allen is a mediocre head coach, mediocre leader of men. But we all felt like he could be successful once he was named head coach if he had the right offensive assistants in place. Now, 2 years ago, we thought pretty strongly that Pete Carmichael, Ronald Curry, and the rest of those guys, Doug Marrone, would be the rest of the would be those offensive assistants because they'd all worked under Sean Payton. They'd all grown up under Sean Payton. So we didn't expect much to change offensively for the Saints. We were wrong. And unfortunately, the defense has aged since. Can this team win with Dennis Allen as coach? I mean, we shall see. Only results are going to save the jobs now. Another 9-8 season is not going to cut it. Pure and simple, I feel now that if this team doesn't at least win the NFC South and host a playoff game, that Dennis Allen and the rest of these coaches are gone. But I do believe that we saw this team win 9 games with Dennis Allen, and if you're going to play the more coulda, woulda, shoulda game, they really you could sit here and make a strong case for they should have won. They should have been 12-5 this year. They were a missed field goal, a dropped pass, and 2 for 6 in the red zone against the Texans, away from winning 3 of those games. And that's not even discounting the embarrassingly putrid starts. I'm using a lot of the terminologies in the article that I'm publishing tomorrow on this subject, by the way. The embarrassingly putrid starts against the Vikings, Lions, and Rams. Vikings and Lions are teams that you vastly outplayed in the final 2 quarters, but you dug yourself too big a hole. Did Dennis learn from that? We shall see. His job probably depends on it. But the Packers, Texans, Jaguars, those are games that even if you win 2 of those 3, you're sitting here talking about an 11-win ball club, a team that won the NFC South going away, and would have been at least in the conversation for a number 1 seed going into the last 2 games of the year. Are they a Super Bowl contender? Any of us that watch Saints football this year, knows that answer is no. But that's how minute the difference is between sitting here saying, "Oh yeah, I think the Saints had a successful season," to the doom and gloom and the sky is falling. That's how thin the line of margin of error is.
Yeah, because the NFC in general is bad. We saw the Eagles and the Cowboys, both with outstanding records, lose in the first round of the playoffs to inferior teams, quite frankly. Both the Packers and the Bucks were inferior teams to those teams, but they still lost. So, you're in a tough position, and I understand the thought process of the organization that you can still make a run, you can still get a shot. They're not an elite team anymore. They're an aging team. They're going to have to start reworking this roster, turning this roster over to younger players, which is why I want to talk about free agency and in the draft already. But this roster is going to have to start getting turned over, but you can be competitive at the same time. And I think, Carr and this offense give you, this new offensive system gives you a chance to remain competitive, maybe to help your defense that is aging, stay in a position where they can do the things that they do best, rushing the passer, shutting down the passing game, getting turnovers, that kind of stuff. And you can win games. You're not going to be the 2011 Saints. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying it, or even the 2017, 2018 Saints. But you have a possibility to be almost like the 2006 team. You can kind of surprise some people. You can kind of get some stuff going. I equated it, and this is the last comment I'm making this evening because I know we got to go, but I equated it to, You look at Jim Haslett's team. Now we're going to throw out 2000 season. We're going to throw out 2005 season. Jim Haslett went 7-9, 9-7, 8-8, 8-8 from 2001 to 2004. What has Dennis Allen done? 7-10, 9-8. We have one extra game. That's the only difference. Now, if they go 8-8, 8-8, that's not going to cut it. He's not going to make it the third season
Right.
doing that kind of stuff. But if he can progress, and that matters by getting a good draft class, it matters by getting good free agents. To me, that's the way he's going to save his job. And I think Klint Kubiak gives him the opportunity to save his job because I think he is that much of an upgrade. We'll see what happens come OTAs and preseason and all the other stuff. But I mean, I'm looking at this team here, this 49ers team, I'm looking at what they did in Minnesota, where he was the offensive coordinator. There's the opportunities to become a better offense because I think we have better weapons than the Vikings had in 2021. I don't think we have a Justin Jefferson, but we do have a better quarterback than Kirk Cousins. And I think we have better receivers and a better running back than the guys not named Justin Jefferson and the running back who's not even there anymore. They let him go after the 2022 season. So, there's him there. Bob, real quick, what are you doing on the Bayou Blitz tomorrow night? Is it tomorrow night or is it going to be Thursday night again?
We're going on Thursday. Brendan, I forget what Brendan said he was up to, but he's not going to have any internet connection. So we're going Thursday at 8 p.m. Central Time. We're going to talk more. About the Klint Kubiak hire, some of the names, we could expect to be brought on as offensive assistants, whether Ronald Curry is going to stay, that kind of thing. We're going to do a mini Super Bowl preview, especially considering we're watching a San Francisco offense, as Alan has pointed out all night, whose concepts we expect to see in New Orleans next week. Who knows? The Saints have not left us grasping for lack of news so far this offseason. So who knows what's going to happen between tonight and Thursday that will give us something additional to talk about.
Absolutely. Real quick then, your prediction. Who do you think is going to win Sunday, San Francisco or Kansas City?
I'll tell you that, first of all, I can't root for either team. I'm an older Saints fan, so I can never root for the 49ers, and I absolutely despise the Chiefs. That comes from my time growing up as a Bronco fan. What I'm rooting for is a meteor strike. But if I don't get that, I'll tell you, the San Francisco 49ers should win this game. But as I always say, with Roger Goodell, it's all about the storylines. Did anybody watch the Grammys the other night? My wife, Lauren, God bless her soul, she puts up with a lot of shit from me. So every now and then when I'm asked to sit down and watch something like this, I have to. So I did watch the Grammys. I saw Taylor Swift win 2 Grammys. I also saw her advertise for an upcoming album. So the Roger Goodell storyline, what better storyline is it? Taylor Swift celebrating with Travis Kelce on the field as it's another opportunity to promote an upcoming album and incorporate the WWE Super Bowl into pop culture. My prediction, the Kansas City Goodells win 31-27 over the San Francisco 49ers.
I'm kind of torn with the Super Bowl because I like Brock Purdy a lot.
I do too.
Especially, given the crap he's taken from some of the talking heads because he's a system quarterback. Well, you know what? Garoppolo was successful in that system. Trey Lance wasn't successful in that system. They gave up 3 first-rounders for him. So I like seeing this guy being successful. I like seeing an underdog like this. Kansas City used to be an underdog. They're not anymore. I feel kind of the same way you do. I think there's going to be some kind of BS that's going to happen. Um, Travis Kelsey gets the game winner or something to that effect. Um, it's hard for me to pull for the 49ers just because of old hatreds,
Right.
especially when I see those uniforms. Um, and I like Patrick Mahomes. I like Travis Kelsey. I like Andy Reid.
So do I.
Um,
But listen,
you know,
and this is the other Goodell storyline. They want to
yeah,
push the narrative that Patrick Mahomes is the latest, greatest of all time. And what better way
yeah,
to do that is to hand him another Super Bowl. So that's what I'm looking at too.
exactly. That's exactly what I was going with. You know, Tom Brady's gone. Who can be the next Tom Brady? Well, there he is right there. We're going to make him the next Tom Brady. He'll have 10 rings. He'll have a finger. He'll look like freaking what was his name? I just forgot his name from Bill Russell from the Boston Celtics.
Celtics.
He always had he has a ring on every finger in his thumb. You know, that's just the way it feels. That's you're looking at the new Tom Brady. He's going to be the one that wins all these Super Bowls, um, winning 3 in 5 years. Oh yeah, I can see that story being written already.
Yep.
Taylor Swift wins a Super Bowl. Um, I yeah, I just don't feel that story as much, Calvin.
No.
I did. I didn't watch the Grammys. I haven't watched the Grammys in 40 years because I don't. In fact, I when I look at the people, most of the people on there, I'm like, who the hell is that? Who the hell is that? Who the hell is that?
That was literally me. I stayed awake and stayed up long enough to see my guy Billy Joel, do his new song. So I was happy about that. And like I said, Lauren puts up with a lot of shit from me. I felt like the concession of watching the Grammys with her that wasn't so bad.
Yeah. Well, I do have to say though, the duet between Luke Combs and Tracy Chapman doing Fast Car. Um, I
Yeah,
saw that on Twitter.
yeah,
And I tell you what, that song sounds even better as a duet than it did
yeah.
as a single for either one because it was a good contrast. When she sang it, it was her song. When Luke Combs sang his part, it became a country song. The steel guitar came in when he would get ready to sing. And I really like that. A guy I do enjoy, whose music I do enjoy, passed away today of cancer. Toby Keith.
Yeah.
Um, you know, uh,
I
that's
I've
probably
lost
one.
my daughter. My daughter texts me when Jimmy Buffett died. Jimmy Buffett was my guy.
Mhm.
Toby Keith was my guy. Billy Joel was my guy. That you now got to protect Billy Joel at all costs because I have no idea who else is out there that I'm going to even like.
Uh, exactly. Yeah, that I was getting ready to say the same thing. I mean, I would put Toby Keith on when we go out on the boats and stuff. He was a fun musician. Really sang a lot of stuff. It was a soundtrack of my life growing up, my kids' life growing up.
Yeah,
I love his music. But yeah, it's oh Lord. Haven't listened to watch the Grammys since Jethro Tull beat Metallica with best metal performance in '89. Wow. Wow. Yeah, I go back to about 87, I think. 87 or 88 was the last one I watched the Grammys. Whenever Bruce Hornsby was on there. I think that was one of the last ones I saw. So yeah, I'm dating myself with that. Um, Bob, thanks for sticking with me. Thanks for letting me go off my little tangents on this. I didn't put my pick in. I'm picking the Chiefs to win as well. But I would not be shocked to see. I expect the 49ers to win because they're the more talented team. But I think the Chiefs it's too perfect for Goodell's audience.
Mhm.
That's what he wants to see. So in the meantime, check out the Bayou Blitz Thursday night at 8 o'clock Central Time, 9 o'clock on the West Coast. I mean 9 o'clock on the East Coast, 6 o'clock on the West Coast, and we'll catch you next time under the dome. Good night, everybody.
At all.